both of Alexander and some of Hercules, of Hector and Lysander, and such great names as these. But of all...
Hello and welcome to today's Battletech review. Today we are going to look at one of the big ones, the common mech of an era, and that particular era is ever since it was released all the way up till now. The Marauder is probably one of the most iconic mechs out there, and probably one of the machines that everybody's seen, not just in 3DOs, but also in person. It's also one of the first model kits I ever saw. Not that I had it, it was my brother's. But I was always getting the second hand and the simpler stuff because my brother's older than me. So while he got a Marauder for Christmas, I got a nice kit for, well, it was a decent enough kit of a Locust, I guess. The Marauder is omnipresent on the battlefields and doesn't have that many different configuration once you look into it, only about the 30 or so. In terms of body kits, it doesn't have that many. Here we've got two alternate body kits, one that's for Auscarita, that's really odd, and one that has been associated with the clans. And I mean, there's just a few other body kits from Project Phoenix, and the original one, and the refined ones, and the revamped ones. Okay, basically, the Marauder's been around for quite some time. Not as long as some people think, but quite some time. And it is fantastically well equipped to be able to withstand those tests of time. There's huge history about the Marauder. I'm not going to go too deep into it because that would take up an entire video of its own. But let's get into it. The Marauder was the official command mech of the Star League and their Gunslinger program ever since its release in 2612. So this basically came after the reunification war and all that came from it. It was built by the very prominent company of GM, which nowadays is more tied to the Federated Suns, let's be honest. But nowadays there's about 12 firms that build the Marauder across the inner sphere and the periphery. It has a narrow profile, hyperextending arms, a directional mount for the gun on its back, a command computer in the cockpit to allow you to be a command mech. All of that explains why it's really, really good. It was used in duels. It was used in pirate hunting. It was used in police action. GM was making huge bank on it because it was a premier product for a premier customer. The SLDF had a special license where they were the only ones allowed to buy it. There's more than one reason for that, mainly because, well, GM couldn't even keep up with the production demands the SLDF was giving to them. The Marauder, there's a reason why it's everywhere nowadays. It is incredibly popular and relatively easy to build. We'll start off with the Marauder people actually remember, the one that was put in production during the Succession War in 2819. GM wanted to keep the product on the shelves, and with their main customer, the SLDF, out of the way, well, they needed a brand new customer base. There's not much difference between this Marauder and the SLDF one outside of technology. In terms of everything else, though, it remains pretty much the same. The first thing is that you use the most common engine for larger mech, the VLAR 300, that was already being used in things like the Orion, a number of 100-ton mechs, and it gave it a top speed of about 65 kilometers per hour. You get 11.5 tons of standard plates, which is very decent, especially combined with the body shape of the Marauder being able to deflect some shots coming into it. As we said, the arms are hyperextending, so you can shoot behind you. The turret mount at the top is directional, so it can flip around and shoot behind you. So it's just able to get into it with just about everyone. The directional mount also allows you to have half-decent anti-air support if required. This is a very basic machine, but one that is extremely successful. As a command mech, the Marauder's weapons are not meant to be used in Brawl. They're also not the most fantastic one ever, but they work quite well in direct fire support roles and in support roles at the back line where you can actually command your unit. Each arm packs a Magna L-Star PPC, One of the better models out there, quite popular, but it's not as common as the Lord's Light. If you go into Draconis Combine, you will see quite a few Marauders with Lord's Light PPCs mounted in the arm rather than the Magnas. It's what's available to them, and it's not that hard of a configuration change. The medium laser in each arm is a Magnum Mark II, also a very popular one. Not the most popular, it's not a Martel, but it's a very decent one as well. Your dorsal mount is a GM Whirlwind 120mm rapid-fire 5-class autocannon. For people that study ancient history, 120mm cannons were quite popular in the late 20th and early 21st century as single-shot weapons on main battle tanks. This one shoots bursts of 5 bullets every time you squeeze the trigger. Modern military commanders don't even realize just how good autocannons are compared to what was originally available back in the days. The original Marauder, though, was the MAD 1R, which was used by the Gunslinger program and as the command mech for the Star League. Surprisingly enough, it doesn't use that much advanced technology, just a little bit to make it a little bit more reliable. 11 tons of ferrofibrous plate makes it well defended, and you have a case to protect the ammo for your GM Whirlwind autocannon, meaning that you're not going to lose the mech to an ammo explosion anymore. Weapon-wise, it was comparable to your original, but a lot of pilots were unsatisfied with the 16 standard heatsinks that were mounted in it. Double heatsinks were already a thing and quite popular, and a lot of commanders requested field upgrades to double heatsinks. It's a bit expensive, it requires some production capability, but it was popular enough that in 2760, the MAD 2R did that standard, so standard double heatsinks, and replaced the PPCs with ER PPCs, which means that your cooling system is even more taxed. Anyways, I'm not going to ask too many questions. They weren't in any major fights or any major wars, and ER PPCs give you a much better range, both at extreme range and at closer range, since they don't have the wind-up situation that PPCs have at very close range. And just how popular were those Marauders? Well, really, GM could not keep up the production. The SLDF needed command mechs, and they kept asking GM for more and more Marauders, and at some point, they just weren't able to put enough out on the market. The SLDF turned around and commissioned Mitchell Vehicle to build a new command mech as well, which they did with the Shootist, which came out about 9 years after your original Marauder. At 70 ton, the Shootist did use all the fancy advanced technology, unlike the Marauders, meaning that it wouldn't survive if a technological downfall were to happen, which it did. This one was also set up a lot more like a brawler with an AC-20, an ER large laser, and 2 medium pulse lasers, and a little emotional support small laser just in case. The thing is, though, the Marauder was the one the SLDF wanted, and it was also the one all the successors state wanted. So the production of the darn thing kept ramping up, and the Shootist was really just there to fill in gaps. The only variant of those two series actually came in 3092 from the Taurian Concordat, who decided, well, we're going to take that original and make it our own. The medium lasers are upgraded to inner sphere grade ER medium lasers, usually when I don't sell them some clan graded ones, and it gives them a better engagement range. The autocannon is upgraded to its equivalent LBX version, allowing you to shoot cluster shots to shoot down VTOLs and aerospace fighter, which is really good in that directional mount. Now, a lot of people liked the Marauder. It was popular with every single successor state, but some of them actually built their own particular variants. The first one was House Davion and the Federated Sons with the MAD 3D. It follows that 3R model and modifies it just a little bit to make it a little bit easier to use. Strangely enough, it replaces the AC-5 with a large laser and 4 extra heatsinks. You would ask, well, Prof, why is the Davion actually taking out an autocannon? It's a little bit of an odd situation, but when you use autocannons on just about everything, well, you have to find something to take the autocannons off to keep your production up. This one, actually, I prefer to the MAD 3R. You don't have the ammo dependencies. The extra heat sinks allow you to shoot both those PPCs on a steady rate, and when things get close by, large lasers and medium lasers are going to do the job. I do believe this is my favorite of the Succession War models. Now, there's a little problem. The Free Worlds League always has problems generating enough PPCs during the Succession War because they stuck every single one that they built onto their awesomes. The 2873 MAD-3M takes off the PPCs and replaces them with large laser, where means you sacrifice on range and a little bit of destructive power, but you are far more efficient. To add to that, you get 4 extra heat sinks. So you will be able to shoot all of those lasers whenever you're in a brawl. This is your brawler Marauder. It does a pretty good job at it. I'd almost take that large laser and add one where the autocannon is to just have 3 large lasers, 2 medium lasers, and plenty of heat sinks to make it really a devastating brawler. It works really, really well. The Capellan Confederation during the Succession War era was an odd duck at the best of time. They were also broke most of the time, and they weren't building their own Marauders. What they did was get an upgrade kit in 2905 for the MAD-3L, which takes one of the PPC off and replaces it with a large laser and 2 extra heat sinks. Because they were running low on large lasers, PPCs, autocannons, just about everything. It's a conscious decision. You spread your range bracket. You've got a decent enough medium range brawl ability. It's a bit of an hybrid of all the ones that we just spoke about, and it's probably my least favorite one. Now for a model that you probably will never see, but did exist for a short period of time. The MAD-4X was an experimental model for the War of 39, and it was using all the brand new recovered technology in ways that generally did not work properly. The skeleton is made of prototype endo steel, takes even more room than usual. And you've got 12 standard heat sinks in the engine and 6 external double heat sinks, which is not the standard way you're going to set up a cooling system. It does give you pretty decent cooling though, but for weapons, rather than going with something tried and true, in this case it mounts a pair of binary laser cannons and 12 tubes of SRMs in the torso. I'm not sure it's all that good. The basic concept is very decent. I like it more than some of the more recent Marauders. Let's say we just have to do some little tweaks to it. But the weapon setup is all wrong, at least in my opinion. The Marauder being the Star League's command mech per excellence, the clans had quite a few of them when they went into exile. This one was upgraded in 2827 for a Marauder C variant. This one is used nowadays for second line work, but back in the days, it was a standard frontline machine. It packs a pair of large pulse lasers, while the autocannon is replaced with a rapid-fire Ultra AC5. Your base model keeps the basic medium lasers in the arm, but you'll see quite a few with ER medium lasers as well, since regular medium lasers kind of went extinct in the clan space, and it still uses standard heat sinks, while quite a few of them have also been upgraded to double heat sinks and all the 3 Rs and the 2 Rs. I mean, there's quite a few variations on that design. This one is the standard C model. I'm sure there's a C2, a C3, a C4, and all sorts of other things floating around that we're not quite aware of because the clans just don't use it nowadays. Prior to the clan invasion, though, people were upgrading mechs using the brand new technology that they recovered from the Helm's memory core, and the Marauder was a prime candidate for that. GM started with an upgrade kit in 3047, so a little bit before a lot of other machines were upgraded, and this one was for Aus Davion, which was the MAD 5D, which is, well, rather expensive, but all new Marauders nowadays will be in that particular category. The engine is now a GM300XL, and the cooling kit is upgraded to doubles, which means you're more fragile because of that engine, but you're going to be able to keep up firing quite a bit more. The PPCs are upgraded to ER versions, and the lasers are upgraded to pulse lasers, so you get 2 medium pulse and a large pulse laser, which kind of cuts into your range, but boosts up your accuracy. If they weren't facing clan mechs, those things probably would have been okay, but with the clans just bearing in, not the best thing ever. You add a Streak SRM2 for good measure as well, which makes it decent against tanks on top of it. And this one added a set of jump jets, so you could jump an extra 120 meters on top of being fairly mobile on the ground. It's pretty decent, all in all, but you do have to be careful, as you are going to be more fragile because of that engine. The people at Bowie Industries grabbed the plans from GM in a very legal way, and started making their own upgrade kit in 3051, just as the clan invasion was in full force. The base idea behind it remains the same, using a GM 300XL to save weight, and you stick double heat sinks on to reduce the heat curve. But the main difference is that the AC5 that's on the original MAD 3R is replaced with a Poland Model A Gauss rifle with a single ton of reload. You get a very decent sniper weapon on top of things, and it's going to be able to decapitate things in a single shot. It's a very decent Marauder. If you keep moving down the line, well, Ronin Incorporated was the Marauder's manufacturer in the Free Worlds League, and they upgraded their line to the more modern technology in 3051 as well. Again, they use a 300XL engine to power the darn thing, but the arms now mount a pair of large pulse lasers and medium pulse lasers. This one is also jump capable at 120 meters and uses the standard double heatsink cooling. The back now packs a LB-10X autocannon with a single ton of case-protected ammo. Even if it goes, these ammo will cripple the mech, but it'll be easier to repair just a single side of the machine than the entire machine if the ammo blows. That's why you set up a case on there. It's not my favorite version of the modern Marauder, but it works well enough. The MAD 5 CS is technically a refit that was only used in the Battle of Tukayyid, but you will see a few of those floating around the inner sphere. The engine is still one of those big 300XL, and you've got 18 double heat sinks to keep the heat down. Each arm mounts an ERPPC and a medium pulse laser, and you also have that LB-10X with 2 tons of reloads in this case, so you can pack a set of slugs and a set of clusters. I think a lot of the ones that you will see nowadays are not originally MAD 5 CS, they're just machines built to emulate the machine that was used at the Battle of Tukayyid. It's functional enough for a Marauder, and kind of imitates the larger Marauder 2 that is also floating around. The 5 Series Marauder kept trucking, with Ceres starting to build their MADS 5L in 3067. This one uses a standard 300 engine, so it's going to be a lot cheaper than a lot of the previous ones, on an endo steel chassis, which is a little bit harder to source, and the really hard to source triple strength myomer and stealth armor with its associated ECM suite, all packed in together. You get 14 tons of stealth armor, and that's going to mean that you're going to be fairly well protected in this case. The arms mount a pair of ER large laser and ER medium lasers, which are very good for brawling, while the autocannon at the top is swapped with an ER PPC. 18 double heat sinks is going to try to keep the heat down, but if you've got your stealth armor turned on and you start shooting all of those ER lasers, things are not going to look pretty. You might want to swap all of those for standards, except maybe the ER mediums. So 2 standard large laser and a standard PPC and 2 ER medium lasers will allow you to control your heat a lot better, but it's still a very decent mech in the end. In 3070, Ceres did make an upgrade for their 5L setup called the 6L. This one downgrades the ER PPC at the top for a standard PPC to help mitigate some of those heat spikes. But the big change is that each arm now packs a plasma rifle, which makes it a very nasty fellow against just about everything. Plasma rifles are really good weapons, even though they're not always the easiest to source for a mercenary commander. The official upgrade kit for the 5 Series came out from GM in 3068. As usual, the engine is now an XL engine, the heat sinks are double heat sinks, and the various weapons, well, the upgrades are on there as well. The PVCs are upgraded to ER versions, while the autocannon is swapped for a Rotary AC5 for a blistering rate of fire with not enough ammo. To improve on protection, you get 4 extra tons of armor and a Guardian ECM, while your targeting is slaved to a C3 computer. That's a whole lot of electronics, while you should probably be putting more ammos for that RAC-5 on there. I do see quite a few people modifying them for that, especially as C3 service is not that popular, at least nowadays. The 3068 MAD-5T was built around an advanced targeting computer with an endosteel chassis and an XL engine. It gets very expensive at that point, and you need those weight-saving technology in order to be able to fit everything in. Your weapons are not going to be able to do the pinpoint fire accuracy that you would have on ER lasers, as an example, but they're going to be very, very accurate nonetheless. Each arm mounts a large pulse lasers and a medium pulse laser, while your shoulder mount is a Rotary AC-5 with entirely not enough ammo. You get 14 tons of plates to make sure you're fairly well protected, but still you're carrying a decent amount of ammo and an XL engine. It's going to be risky in the end. The MAD-7D follows down the same line with a targeting computer in its core and the XL engine. This time, though, you are able to do that precision fire with ER large lasers and ER medium lasers in the arm, so you get very good range and this pinpoint fire accuracy. Your shoulder mount still has that Rotary AC-5, you still get 14 tons of armor, and this one has a Guardian ECM to protect its own targeting computer and disrupt enemies' targeting computers as well. This one I think is a little bit better, at least in my opinion, for what a Marauder should be able to do, rather than being a simple brawler. The MAD-9M is an early Jihad variant, which uses that XL engine that we're used to seeing now, and 12.5 tons of ferrofibrous plates to keep it protected. It's meant to be a competent sniper, using a pair of ER large laser in each arm, and when things get closer, you get a pair of 6-tube SRMs to back you up. For electronics, you do have a tag laser, which is going to be pretty nice if you're helping out some other units with guided LRMs, which were getting quite popular with the Merrick militias at the time. And you also have an ECM SUI to break up enemy C3 networks. There's an upgraded version of it, the 9M2, which replaces the large lasers with a pair of heavy PPCs. I would almost make one with just regular large lasers rather than the ERs, so you can manage your EAT a little bit better. Then there's the upgrade kit of the upgrade kit with the MAD-7M, which uses a pair of heavy PPCs and ER medium lasers in the arms for fairly long-range offense. You get 15 double heat sinks, which will barely keep you cool, and your dorsal autocannon is swapped for an LB5X with case-protected ammo. This one is not entirely terrible and is able to jump 120 meters, making it a fairly decent mobile sniper. Let's take a little detour here and speak about the 3068 Lyran Alliance version of the Marauder, which is one of the nicer one using a light engine instead of an XL engine, so you're going to be a little bit tougher. The arm mounts your standard equipment, an ER PPC and an ER medium laser, while your shoulder mounts that LB10X autocannon, and you even get a nice little flamer at shoulder range against infantry and armored target. This one also has its targeting and comm array tied into a Guardian ECM and a Beagle active probe. It's a nice straight up upgrade from the standard Marauder. I see very little wrong with it outside of the price tag, basically. Since just about everyone had a Marauder, well, the Blakist had to make their own with the MAD-9W. As any good Word of Blake machines, this one has an improved C3 computer to allow it to guide fire for all the other units in its level 2. This one also mounts a light fusion engine tied to a heavy-duty gyro, which is generally not very good, and you get 5 improved jump jets to be able to bounce 150 meters. Your arm mounts a set of ER large lasers and medium pulse lasers, while your shoulder gun is a snub-nose PPC. It is far from my favorite, not just because of its association with the words of Blake, but because a lot of the setup is just wrong. I don't like improved jump jets. Heavy-duty gyros are generally not worth it. Really, you can do better than get this particular machine. The Republic of the Sphere brought out 2 new Marauders in 3103 with their 7 series. Both really feature more or less the same equipment, an ER PPC and a medium X-pulse laser in each arm, giving you very decent range, even though you're going to run fairly hot. while the shoulder mount is a light Gauss rifle, giving you very nice sniping potential, even though the damage is not quite there. The 7R model will have 2 tons of reload for that Gauss rifle, while the 7C will have a single ton of reload and a C3 slave. This mech is also protected by a Guardian ECM, just to make things a little bit better. GM also started building new Marauders in the 32nd century for Aus Davion and the Federated Sons. This one's the 3125 MAD 9D, which combines GM's knowledge of clan technology along with standard Inner Sphere Grade 1. It's very fancy, using an XL engine, an XL gyro, endo composite, and 16 radical heatsink and ants double heatsinks to make sure that the heat stays down. Each arm mounts a clan grade ER large lasers backed by a medium X-Pulse laser or a clan medium pulse on the really fancy models. Your shoulder mount is the shotgun-style silver bullet Gauss rifle, which is fairly uncommon, but has been getting a little bit more popular recently. This one is not terribly awful, but since its main heat exchange system is tied to that radical system, it can be a little bit risky. The 11D Marauder basically follows in the same footsteps with the same XL everything and endo composite, but it simplifies the heatsink system with 17 double heatsinks rather than the radical system. The arm now mounts big clan ERPPCs with those pesky medium X-Pulse lasers as backup, or if they're able to buy them, Sea Fox sourced medium pulse lasers. Your shoulder still mounts that silver bullet Gauss rifle, but it's now protected by a case 2, so if it gets damaged, the explosion will go backwards, and 2 tons of reloads, which should be good enough for standard engagements. I think I like this one a little bit better, even though it is quite risky with that XL everything. As an extensively popular mech, the Marauder had a lot of improvement and side designs on that particular starting concept. The first ones that come to mind, of course, are the 2 Assault Mech versions of the Marauder, namely the Clan Marauder 2C and Wolf's Dragoon Marauder 2. They're basically what if we made the Marauder bigger and meaner and stuck a bit of fancy bits to it. The 2C is quite common amongst all Clan Toman as a backup or second line mech, while the Marauder 2 is a common sight in many mercenary outfits out there, and in the Marian hegemony for some reason, because they decided to tape a whole lot of rocket launchers to the top of that body. It's a fun design. We'll talk about it when we talk about the Marauder 2 at some point in the future. There were actually 2 mechs that the Star League Defense Force wanted to put into production based on the Marauder as well. Both of those were left on the drawing boards, but they were recovered with the Helm's memory core, and people finally put them in production after the clan invasion. The Dragonfired was envisioned as some type of a ballistic upgrade featuring an LB-10X and a Gauss rifle, and the Lyrans finally put that one into production in 3058. The Maelstrom, on the other end, comes with a full energy suite of weapon on a faster platform using a 375XL engine. GM actually put that one into production in 3056. The Nightstar was meant to replace the Marauder as the dedicated command mech for the SLDF. It was in production during the Star League era, but it wasn't in a massive production. It was in small numbers in Kerensky's lines there. At 95 ton, it is slower but much tougher than its smaller cousin. For weapons, you also have a pair of Gauss rifle, an ERPPC, and some of the best targeting computer ever put into a battle mech. At this point in time, I'm literally buying cockpit assemblies from Nightstars and putting them in other mechs that come into the shop. People ask me for it. It's really expensive, but I understand why people ask me for that. We'll cover the Nightstar at some point. The Bandersnatch from Bander's Battle Mechs was inspired by Alice in Wonderland and the Marauder. I'm pretty sure it was inspired by the Marauder a lot more than Alice in Wonderland's, actually. The armor setup, the engine, and the basic weapons come from the Marauder, but the Bandersnatch went with double ballistics in the arms rather than PPCs. It never sold in huge number, but it did sell quite a few and is fairly popular amongst mercenaries and people who have a decent enough supply line, basically. We already did discuss the Rakshasa on the channel, But it's basically a Marauder cosplaying as a Timberwolf. It's the same chassis, just as the autocannon replaced by those boxes of LRM. It's not as good as the clan version, and it's not quite as good as a Marauder, at least in my opinion. But the good lads and lass at GM decided to put quite a few together. And I do think that with a little bit of time and a little bit of effort, it could probably be a very decent mech. Speaking of the people at GM, well, they did try to make an Omni version of the Marauder in 3135. It's a prototype. There's a few of them floating around, and my contacts in Ghost Bear are saying that it might not be a prototype anymore, and some of them are in production. But I haven't really seen any here on the yard. It uses clan gear for just about everything. It has a 300XL engine, a compact gyro, ferrolamellar plate, clan double heat sinks to keep things down, but you still get 35.5 tons of pod space, so the prime version of it would be a basic Marauder with a pair of clan ER PPCs, clan ER medium lasers, and a AG 30 with 3 tons of reload. This would be quite significant as a machine. I'll probably have more details on it in the future. We'll see how it goes. There's probably a million different personal configurations of the Marauder out there. There are double cockpit variants. There are command console variants. There's variants with 3 AC5s. I'm sure there's those C2s, those C3s, those C3C3s, and the Marauder 2C2 and the Marauder 2C. There's so many of them out there. The Marauder is really what you buy when you don't quite know what to fill into a formation or what you want to give a unit commander. It's not going to be rare. It's not going to be terribly expensive to maintain because there's parts for it just about everywhere, at least nowadays. If you want more of an history lesson on this thing, I would recommend checking out Randolph P. Checker's lesson on the Comnet on the Marauder. It covers a lot more of the history of the machine. I had enough material to talk about this for quite some time already, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. So I thank you very much for listening to me for so long. I hope you guys have a very nice rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.